I found just take the time to learn how everything works. Figure out how the blockchain works, right? Figure out how the block explorers work. How transactions, you can see the transactions, the details, all that kind of stuff, right? So you want to go and actually figure out, from point A to point B, when you're sending a transaction or you're doing a trade or, that kind of stuff, you want to figure out how it all works and how you can see the activity that's happening on chain. Kind of gives you a better understanding too of, what's also happening.
All right, guys, welcome back to another episode of Phantom Edge. Today, I have a very special guest that goes by Ryan Lowe. He is the CEO, co-founder of Modefi. He has an expansive knowledge of the space. He's been here for a minute, and I'm excited to have you here, man. Thank you so much for being here.
Thanks for having me on this.
Of course. So yeah, let's go right into it. The first question I have for you, you're pretty knowledgeable in the Oracle side of things. So I would like for you to share what exactly is an Oracle for a newbie, right? How do you explain an Oracle for someone new?
Well, essentially, blockchain is disconnected from the real world, right? From the internet, from everything. It's its own basically it's blockchain, completely separate from everything else. So there needs to be a way to get real world data, pricing data, anything in terms of that on chain. So oracles basically take that information and they supply it on chain for people to use.
Mm-hmm. Oh, that's pretty simple. Makes sense how to
Yeah.
essentially interact with off-chain, on-chain data. So makes sense. So yeah, because I think sometimes we hear these big words and anybody new coming in is like, what? Now there's an Oracle. I'm barely getting to know blockchain, you know? So thank you so much for explaining that super simply. The next question, like I mentioned, you've been in the space for some time now. You've probably been part of some pretty intense cycles, whether that's a bull run or a bear market, respectively. Has there ever been a time where you're like, you know what, I'm done with this space, I'm out? Or on the other side, what kept you here? What's been your motivator?
I think really, I got into the space in 2017 and I got heavily involved just kind of checking out the scene, right? So that's where, I suggest everybody starts. It's just checking things out, doing your research. But basically, I started doing that and I started getting into Ethereum and figuring out what smart contracts were. And that was kind of what really drug me into it was the smart contract side of things. So, um, I basically dove headfirst into that.
Mhm.
And that was kind of what took me through because I entered into the later part of 2017. As we all know, the market kind of took a dive early 2018, right?
Mhm.
So I took advantage of the situation in the market at that time, and I just basically started doing a bunch of research and figuring out, what smart contracts were, how they worked, and then also started looking into oracles because it definitely, interested us as well. So that was kind of where we got started there. And then the bear market never, everybody goes, when you're going through a bear market and it's your first time, obviously it's going to play some emotions on you, right? But I
Absolutely.
didn't let that get to me. I just basically nose to the grindstone and just every waking minute and every moment that I had that was free, I spent doing research and teaching myself and educating myself about how all of this works, right? So
Hmm.
yeah, that's kind of where we came up with Modify was
Yeah.
that we noticed there was an Oracle issue, a long-standing one, and we wanted to produce products that fixed help solve those issues.
Yeah, I'm glad. Like you mentioned, sometimes going through your first bear market is scary. It triggers your emotions, the ups and downs. Obviously, currently still, I guess, debatable. We're still going through one, but when this initiated, it is kind of scary. So, thanks for sharing your insight and in hindsight, what you've kind of developed into in the past years. So, the next question I have for you is almost like a scenario. I want to give you a scenario. Let's suppose I'm new to the space, right? I kind of come into Twitter, kind of the crypto hub, if you will, join some spaces, kind of go into dabble into different things. What is one piece of advice that you would share for someone new in where to start, or like a concept that they should really get nailed down?
Well, there's a lot. I could talk for
Yeah.
hours, right?
Yeah.
But really, in reality, do your own research. don't just follow what people are saying. The luckily I never really made much of that mistake. I might have maybe early on a couple times, but then I learned from it pretty quick, right? So I found just take the time to learn how everything works. Figure out how the blockchain works, right? Figure out how the block explorers work. How transactions, you can see the transactions, the details, all that kind of stuff, right? So you want to go and actually figure out, from point A to point B, when you're sending a transaction or you're doing a trade or, that kind of stuff, you want to figure out how it all works and how you can see the activity that's happening on chain. Kind of gives you a better understanding too of, what's also happening, right? So then you can also keep an eye out for yourself, and making sure you're not getting scammed or anything like that, because there's a lot of projects that will come out. They'll deploy a token or launch something, and if you really did your research, if you knew where to look, you would save yourself from getting hurt, right? So
Yeah.
if you can do that little bit of research, 100%, that's the best thing to do. Watch some videos on how blockchain works. Just dive into it yourself. Luckily for me, I have a tech savvy background.
Yeah.
So it came pretty natural to me. I don't know, some people it doesn't. Just, don't get discouraged. Just and try to avoid scams and scammers. And, if somebody DMs you, chances are they're a scammer. It doesn't matter how good, it sounds. It's, it's too good to be true. That's usually the case. I mean, I have found sometimes in crypto, this is one of the few places where if it's too good to be true, sometimes it is true, right? But just make sure you cover your bases and protect yourself, especially your wallets. So like definitely if you are going to have a good amount of money that you're investing in a space over a couple $1,000s, get yourself a hardware wallet, 100%. That is a good barrier between you and scammers or phishing attacks, that kind of stuff. And learn to figure out what your transactions are doing too. Because if you get fished to a website you think is real, and then you go to sign a transaction, it doesn't matter if it's on a hardware wallet, they could still get access to all your funds. So just be careful.
Absolutely, man. It's such a bummer that these scammers kind of ruined it for all the good people, because there's a lot of good people in this space, but unfortunately, like you said, there are scammings and phishing attacks all the time. So yeah, great piece of advice, man. Thank you. The last question, man, to conclude is, in your perspective, what are you most bullish on this year and the years to come?
Really seeing adoption, start to come in, right? So with Coinbase doing their layer 2, you can see that they're starting to get a little bit more involved in the decentralized part of it, which is good. A lot of these things that have happened with the centralized custody, all the things that have happened to cause a lot of these black swan events that have happened in the space. It's taught a lot of people how important decentralization is, and how, if it's not your keys, not your crypto, kind of thing. So, that's the biggest thing for me is adoption. We're not going to get adoption until people understand that they need to take care of themselves. They need to take control of their funds, not just throw it on an exchange and be like, oh, they've been around for years, that's safe, that kind of thing. But yeah, it'll come, and I think I'm seeing a lot of new projects coming out that are exciting. I've been involved with Fantom for quite some time, and a lot of things that you guys are coming out with, the wallet integration, that kind of stuff with to help with the adoption part of it is awesome as well. I'm excited for that. And gasless, transactions where the contracts can handle the gas fees and stuff. Help subsidize that, which also helps with adoption and onboarding too. If somebody comes in, they don't have to fill their wallet up with Fantom to start doing transactions. They can, if the contract allows it, then they can use the gas that's subsidized there. So yeah, I'm excited for that.
Absolutely. Yeah, gas subsidies. Yeah, gas subsidies are cool because a lot of people come in and sometimes it's hard to even get the native token to experience any protocols on that blockchain, right? So yeah, and I appreciate you. You're an OG Fantom user. Back in the day, you're deploying some smart contracts. You even said it's cheaper to go on mainnet than it was on the testnet almost.
Well, I mean, at the time when I was kind of messing around with it, it was so cheap on mainnet. It didn't
Yeah.
even make sense. Like, I don't even know if there was a test net at the time. I'm sure there was, right?
Yep.
But it didn't have an explorer or anything like that, right? So it made more sense to just honestly launch test contracts on the mainnet, because it was like thousands of a penny to
Yeah.
even just deploy a contract, right? So, and it's still really cheap, even on mainnet. I mean, we moved our testing to testnet
Yeah.
for obvious reasons now, but lightning quick, you know, all that stuff is the first time I ever used it. I was honestly blown away, and I still am.
Yeah.
So, yeah,
I agree. I'm on that same boat, man. It's almost like once you get a taste of it, there's no going back.
yeah.
So thank you so much, Ryan, for spending some time with me, sharing some of your insight. Again, it's an honor, and I hope to have you back again. As always, this is short, but hey, we get right to the point. So I appreciate you, man, and we'll stay in touch.
Thanks, Lewis.
Take care, man.